I'd like to show you my UK original Beatles scrapbook from the late 60s. I'll try and go through fairly quickly, trying to pick out the more important events. We started off here with the Maharishi, the first lesson for the Beatles there. And then we got Paul covered in paint. This was a paint throwing festival. It's more transcendental meditation. And we've got a picture here with Paul and George and someone who's appears to be in some sort of a trance. And we also have Donovan there too. And then after that it was back to work and never mind the temple, says John. And then we have the first report of John's marriage riddle with Cynthia. And then we have he's admitting he loves Yoko. And then Paul and Linda split up too. Paul and Jane, should we say. Well, that used to saying Paul and Linda. So Jane and Paul, is it a tiff? No. There we got the Beatles when they were children there. I'll quickly move forward. George is a rocker again. He's there with Jackie Lomax. And that's John and Yoko after their court appearance. And there was also a report of the spring baby for John and Yoko. And there we have Yoko is named by Lennon's wife, Cynthia. And now we have the first report of the Hey Jude single there. The enemy were saying that the Beatles are still streets ahead, which they always were. That's a report on the Apple organisation, and Paul thinks the Beatles are losing the habit of recording. There's the first report of the White Album there. Double album, November 16, with 24 tracks. And there's the review, track by track review. £73 bob is the cost of the album. One bob was 1 shilling. Bob was sort of a slang term in the UK for 1 shilling, so there was 20 shillings and a pound. So you can work out how much the cost of that album was in '68. And we got a decree for John and Yoko there. First report of the Beatles when they considered returning to the live stage. The first report was saying they were going to play at the Chalk Farm Roundhouse in London, December the 14th to 21st. Now we got John's fined and Yoko cleared over drugs. Venue switch for the Beatles shows. George meets Sinatra. And there we have Paul recalling the inspirations of the White Album there. Three women in the life of Paul, Mary, Jane and Linda. And there we are on the roof there. Ringo Starr's newest lover. The Screen's newest great lover. That was when he appeared in Candy. Quickly go through these here now. Nothing particularly interesting there. The girl most likely to be Mrs. McCartney. And that's Linda there. Who knows, says Paul. And then best man, Mike, who was Mike McCartney's brother, and British Rail keep Linda and Paul waiting for an hour. And there we've got more reports on the wedding. The fans not too happy there. And got more photographs there. Paul with Heather, Linda's daughter. Portrait of Paul on his wedding eve, which is what you would expect from Paul. Bit of a workaholic even them days as he is now. George and Patty arrested on a drugs charge. Beatle John's Bossy Girl, article on Yoko. Ringo gets for it, don't let John in your flat. Ringo's landlords weren't too happy about John and Yoko living in Ringo's flat. George is fined £500. They're getting up today. Interview with John. Yeah. John's saying he's hard up, he's down to £50,000 in cash and he needs to work again. Scotland Yard played George's discs in pot raid on his home. Beatles Rock gets back to the beat. That's a review of Get Back and Don't Let Me Down. And that's the advertisement in the New Musical Express for that single. Ringo's saying we're not mop tops anymore. Surprise new single planned by the Beatles. That was Ballad of John and Yoko. Beatle music is straightforward on next album, says John. And there's the advert for Ballad of John and Yoko and Old Brown Shoe. There's the review of the single. John says Ringo's right, we can't tour again. First reports of Abbey Road coming out. Give Peace a chance. New Beatles out in a fortnight, Abbey Road. Paul sees his baby being born. Beatles' new album gets a BBC Two preview. John's new group, Plastic Ono Band. Paul, Linda and their new baby Mary. Abbey Road track by track review. Tell my fans I'm alive and well, says Paul. This was the Paul is Dead fiasco. Live piece in Toronto. Beatles single by George. Engelbert Humperdinck, what's he doing here? I know, we've got John on the other side. And we've got a wedding album there, advertisement. The other side, we've got an interview with John. Neat Suits and Jelly Babies, the 60s belonged to the Beatles. Solo album by Paul. Plastic Ono Band score with the old bathroom echo, which was instant karma. Got a bit mixed up around here, I think. We've got some of the, it's not properly in order, but still interesting to read. Beatles are on the brink of splitting, says John. Ono Band was a waste of talent. Maybe, maybe not. That was actually John's last live performance in the UK. And there we have a photograph of John on the Lyceum stage. Interview with George. Beatle records need more playing to get into, that's true. Ringo meets Elvis. George and Ono Band. Let It Be is another Hey Jude. There's George with Delaney and Bonnie with Eric Clapton. Have the Beatles already split? And then we have the end of the year poll results from the NME, with the top band, top album and top single. Let It Be single advertisement. Interview with John. Future by Paul. Not a Beatle hit, more a McCartney solo smash. That's Let It Be. Is this the end for the Beatles? Paul's solo album, issued April 17. There we have a review of the album. Paul's first album called McCartney. And the NME quite liked this album and said it was a warm pleasure. And that's the interview which Paul conducted with himself. Various news reports there. Review of the Let It Be album, showing that the reviewer was saying new LP shows they couldn't care less. Farewell to the Beatles. Even when the bad times were sometimes good. Ringo TV series, that album with Dylan, that never really came off. And finally we got an interview, or a focus on a top star, which was Paul McCartney. Not looking too happy there, but this was a feature in the NME which used to pick a well-known musician each week and do a bit of an article on them. So Paul was certainly top star in them days. Shame to see not looking too happy, but there we go. Okay, that's the end of my Beatles scrapbook. It sort of neatly ties in with a split at the end. It's a bit of a ramshackle scrapbook, but it's got a charm to it. It's quite old, which means that I'm quite old too. But I remember doing this when I was quite a young boy, and I was away from my father to read his newspaper, and if there's any cuttings in there, I'd cut them out and stick them in here. So it's mainly like the UK press, the NME, newspapers like the Daily Mirror, etc. So there we go. And there we have. Nice little picture there. So I hope you enjoyed my little blast from the past here, and maybe we'll see you again soon. Okay, bye bye.